Hello everyone, this is the real A-Town aka RGB Fox, and today we're going to be talking about Hutao. We're going to be discussing on whether or not she's good, whether or not she's worth pulling for nowadays, and ultimately all things about Hutao. A lot of players have been waiting on Hutao's rerun and have been wondering if she's going to be a good unit for them to invest in, and here I'm going to give you all those answers and more. So of course, if you guys like this video, I do ask to consider subscribing, as I think that I'm going to be giving you guys a lot of good information about Hutao, her kit, some of her best teams, and whether or not I think you should collect her right now. And with that, let's get on with the video. It's clear that many people who wish to grab Hutao are looking for this funeral director to do a lot of pyro damage in a short span of time. When we compare her to most pyro damage dealers, we can see that she legitimately outperforms units like the Luke, Yoimiya, and the rest of the cast in vaporized comps. However, if there's one unit who can keep up and at times outperform Hutao in different situations, then Xianling is her legitimate competitor in damage. The benefit of course is that Xianling is also a free unit available after beating 3rd or 4th chamber of the Spiral Abyss, which means that you get to save your primo gems and pull for a different unit such as Yelan, who offers a lot more for you. Whether you need an off-field Hydra unit to apply Hydra for Freeze, Vape, Bloom, and more, it's easy to see that the other unit in the second half of the rerun banner for 3.4 can be a lot more useful to pull for, especially since Dendro has changed the landscape and what kind of teams you can build for the in-game content. No longer is it necessary to run a pyro unit for the first and second half of the Abyss, so realistically, it's hard to admit that she's a unit worth pulling for as of Dendro's release. Need a good team to deal a lot of single target damage with? Use Hyper Bloom. With Dendro main character, Sucrose, a Hydra unit, and Fischl, you get a lot of bang for your buck. It doesn't even have to be Sucrose or Fischl, it can be someone like Kuki to carry you in the Spiral Abyss to hit the Cs generated by the Bloom reaction, which means you ultimately have free reign over who you can place on your Hyper Bloom teams. That being said, I do understand that many players do not care about Spiral Abyss viabilities and just want a character to play simply because they like them, or maybe they want a unit that won't have any trouble clearing boss runs when they need to farm. For whatever reason you may have, it's valid. If you want to pull for Hutao, I'd say do so. If you're looking to pick up a copy of 2 of this adorable funeral director, here's a few things to keep in mind when you're building her. This won't be a comprehensive guide for her. If you want that, I'd suggest keeping watch for when Xiox releases a new video updating her guide. HP percent is going to be her go-to when deciding between attack percent or HP. Despite that, an HP stance is not always a go-to stance to give her. The way you want to build Hutao for vape teams leads you to want to build Elemental Mastery and crit on her kit since she vapes most of her damage. It's usually best to stick with an Elemental Mastery stance to ensure that she'll do the most damage possible. About 1 to 200 Elemental Mastery is recommended, but of course, these decisions are affected by what supports you give her, what team she's played in, or even what weapons you give her. As always, refer to the Genshin Impact optimizer to finalize that answer. Now, how much HP is correct? I wish I had a definitive answer, but honestly, I don't. Utilize the optimizer to see what works for you and your build, because honestly, I have about 25k HP on my Hutao, and I find that the amount I have with my Elemental Mastery stance works great. But again, this is fully determined by your weapons, your team comps, the supports that she has, and the buffs that you plan on giving her. When building, do prioritize leveling up her normal attacks and elemental skill first before going for her burst. To maximize her damage, make sure you get those 2 talents as high as possible to ensure maximum damage potential for her. Also, keep in mind that with her A4 passive, she very much wants to be under 50% HP to get the 33% pyro damage bonus. Aside from that, her burst also gets a damage bonus increase whenever she's under 50%, whilst also offering her more healing when below that threshold. To ensure even more damage out of the burst, make sure that you activate it whenever you are in her skill infusion. With all that out of the way, what are the best artifact sets you can give to Hutao? Well, I'm happy to announce that there really isn't a best in slot to give her. Sure, Crimson Witch is notably the best one you could give her. However, her other set options are not far from each other in terms of damage potential. Therefore, aside from Crimson Witch of Flames, her other viable 4-piece options are Gilded Dreams and Shimenawa's Reminiscence. Of course, whichever one has better substats is usually the one that you should go for, but I will say that both Shimenawa's Reminiscence and Gilded Dreams are much more resin efficient than the Crimson Witch domain. Do note that if you aren't having good luck with those 2 artifact domains, you are able to transfer the useless 5-star artifacts to the artifact strongbox in an attempt to get some good Crimson Witch pieces. I will say that Shimenawa's Reminiscence does have some drawbacks. While the amount of damage that you get for your charge attacks is a lot, it can prevent you from using your burst in key moments, such as missing times to nuke your opponents or to use it for a quick iframe dodge dodge, which can hinder not only your damage, but potentially your survivability. Overall, I hear that it's about 1 to 5% better given equal substats, but I can only say that with a grain of salt since I don't really remember the exact percentages. Now, if you don't have suitable 4-piece sets available, you can always make do with 2-piece options of either 2-piece Elemental Mastery, Tenacity, and or Crimson Witch to settle your artifact needs. What about weapon options? Honestly, she has many weapon options available for her to be able to take full advantage of when you're playing the game. For 5-star options, you obviously have her signature weapon and best in slot, Staff of Homa. Hutao is the only character that not only appreciates the crit damage it has, but also the HP given to her and the attack bonus she receives when she's below 50%. While Hutao's elemental skill has a limit on how much HP can be converted to attack, Staff of Homa has no limit, so if you have a lot of HP on her, you're bound to receive more attack, but I do suggest you don't go over 40k. The other 5-star pole armors at her disposal to use effectively are the Staff of Scarlet Sands, and in a pinch, but very copium, Primordial Jade Wing Spear. That's not to say that it's a bad weapon on her, but honestly, I wouldn't choose it over the amazing 4-star option that she has, such as the Deathmatch, which is widely available for her on the Battle Pass. Primordial Jade Wing Spear's passive stacks very abysmally, so Hutao doesn't even get to take advantage of it very well. Now, while I did mention Deathmatch, other 4-star options are readily accessible either for free or through gacha pulls. 4 stars include the Dragon's Bane, which can be a great weapon for her, especially with refinements. The damage bonus it provides and the Elemental Mastery makes it a solid choice for her that can compete with the Deathmatch. In double Hydro teams with Yelan, Xingqiu, and Shanling or Zhongli, the Lithic Spear can be a very good option for her, especially with high refinements. The Mist of Wind Spear is the latest free-to-play weapon that we had available for her, and honestly, is not that bad. At R5, it provides 65.3% attack and 96 EM to her kit, which means it's a pretty good stat stick if you have no other options. Then again, the following free-to-play weapon that you can give her is a 3-star with the White Tassel. It can be fine at R1 since the passive only increases her normal attack damage, but it's still decent as it provides a decent amount of crit and your normal attacks are still a part of your overall damage. What about her teammates? Honestly, she has many great ones that you can pair her up with. For example, for Hydra units, her best options are Xingqiu and Yelan. No one beats them when it comes to off-field Hydra application, and Xingqiu is generally the best between these two. Now, does this mean that Yelan sucks as a solo Hydra applier for Hutao? Not necessarily, but when it comes to her application at C0, it can be worse than someone who already has a Xingqiu at C6. That being said, you can mitigate this in one of few ways. Number 1, you adjust your Hutao combos for a N1C- combo or N1CJ. Number 2, play her with Xingqiu, in which case you'll have a lot of Hydro applied regardless of your combos. Or number 3, if you're a big baller, you can opt to pull for her C2, which from what I've seen, fully supplements Hutao's Hydro needs as a vape unit. Now, as far as pyro units go, she can be paired up with a number of pyro units to set up VV vape comps, but my best recommendations would be Toma, Amber with Elegy, Yanfei, assuming you have plenty of energy recharge for her C4 for a tank Fei playstyle, or even with Bennett. I'm not really the biggest fan of Bennett with Hutao since he tends to just overheal her, and you really just want to be under the 50% mark to get the full benefit of her kit, but is not bad by any means. With the introduction of her double Hydro team, she can actually be paired up with Shanling to be able to have her Pyronado out whilst having enough Hydro to vaporize all her hits and have enough Hydro to also vape Hutao's charge attack at the same time. The team was coined by Suggest77 to be called Funerational, so I'll be calling it as such. Next are the animal units, and I typically recommend either Kazuha or Sucrose, as in these teams both can do a good job to either give Hutao more than enough elemental mastery and thus increase her vape damage, or give her a damage percent bonus that can only further increase her pyro damage. For Geo units, you have the incredible Zhongli and Albedo for double Geo comps. They're generally the best units to give her for those team options, but units like Ningguang as a burst DPS or Yunjin could work too if you're planning to go for the N2C routes, as her normal attacks are still valuable. I wouldn't personally do it, but it's an option. Geo MC also works. Cryo units are far and wide, and while I personally don't recommend melt comps with Hutao, you can always play Diona for a good shield her and heal her in a pinch. And of course at C6, if you want to utilize the elemental mastery, you could do so. Layla, for the same reason of course, except instead of healing, you will get damage. Ganyu for cryo application with her burst, Ayaka or Rosaria for the crit hit and constant cryo application her burst provides. These units can also be good in invade melt comps where you're both playing cryo and hydro units in her teams. Facial can work as an electro unit that can place the electro charge aura on the enemy and thus increase the duration of hydro on an enemy when it's weak in application, for instance like with Yelan. I suppose someone like Yae Miko could also work, but Facial is a lot more accessible and in my opinion, better. Less field time requirement means better field time for Hutao. Now, you can also play Beidou and Overload comps, but I don't know how well those teams do since I haven't personally tried them, but I can't imagine them being very good. In any case, when playing her in those teams, make sure you do equip Hutao with as much elemental mastery as you can and level her up to level 90. Can Hutao work with dendro units? It'd be a lie to say that she couldn't, but playing her in either Burning or Burgeon teams can be good for her health, as the self damage you receive from either reaction is too much to handle. This damage only worsens for Hutao when in AoE, as the burning reaction can increase based on the number of enemies affected, and in Burgeon teams, well, although seeds blowing up in her face will be detrimental, especially at low HP. Man, that was a lot to go through, and I can only imagine how long it'd be to edit this video, but I'm in it to win it. I hope you enjoyed this analysis on Hutao to close your thoughts on whether or not she's worth pulling for, and if you learned anything new about her, do let me know in the comments below. I'm unfortunately back in school as of last week, and I have been busy. It's okay though, I'll try to make sure I don't back up from content until at least the second half of my semester, as I'm sure my next chemistry class is going to be the end of me. Until then, we'll see how it goes. You guys have given me a lot of love in my recent videos, especially in the Dea's conversation video, and honestly, I couldn't be happier. So thank you for all the support, and let's hope that we can get to 300 subscribers here with this next video. This has been RGB Fox, and if you enjoyed this video, do consider subscribing for more videos like this one. Thank you for watching. Peace.